The world, particularly the business world, is changing very rapidly, and AI is helping it change even more rapidly. And our customers are changing their thought process more rapidly, and their view of their power versus a brand's like your brand's power, and to the point where they're finding that they think that their brand is maybe even more important than your brand. And so this creates a very interesting relationship between the customer and your business. And it's very difficult for businesses to adapt to that. We tend to go into, as our guest will explain, we tend to go into a bit of a victimhood, at least in the short run, and we don't control our own narrative. So today we're going to actually discover how technology upended branding and how clients now engage with a brand and how strongly they feel about their power versus your company's power. And this is such a fascinating topic because life is changing rapidly. And we went through COVID. Everybody was upended then. Now but because of AI, we're upended it's like almost every other week. It seems like we've got some major change in our marketplace. So I'm very excited to welcome an expert in this area, Lior Arussy. Did I say your name right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Our guest is Lior Arussy. Lior wrote the book, which is such an interesting title, Dare to Author. And he's going to explain what that means. Because we're not talking about writing a book, we're talking about writing your story and your narrative. And I think this is a fascinating way to look at how do we deal with AI and the disruption that it's caused with our customers. So Lior, welcome so much to the Wealthability Show. It is such a privilege to have you on our show.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It is a great pleasure.
And if you would, give us a little of your background, because you've got both entrepreneurial and big company background.
Yes, that's correct. So my background actually includes at the beginning of it, two different startups, one that succeeded very well and another one that actually failed very miserably in the same way that the other one succeeded. So I've been on that journey. I've seen what does it mean to bootstrap and try to create something and gain clients and so on and so forth. From there, I worked at two major technology companies. So the whole world of technology and the movements and everything else I'm well versed with. And since 2003, I started my own consulting business out of my garage, like many entrepreneurs. And thank God it grew to about 150 consultants with offices in Australia, Canada, Europe, and the US. And fulfilled even that small dream of some entrepreneurs of actually selling the business in 2018. Since then, I've been busy with working with startups on their go-to-market, writing books, providing some lectures, and volunteer with nonprofits. I'm a father of 5 and a grandfather of 4.
Oh, well, grandfather, that I know that is, as my mother used to say, that's the reward for being a parent.
Yes.
Which I 100% agree with my 2 grandchildren. So I share your feeling on that. So Lior, if you would, you let's talk about change in general first, okay, before we get to AI and how AI actually affects it. What have you seen over the years as you've been working with startups and working with even big companies? How do people tend to react to change? And probably the most obvious experience with this was probably COVID, was the whole world experienced this pretty much all at the same time. So how do people tend to react to changes that they did not initiate?
Okay. I'm going to start in the macro picture, and then I'm going to go into the COVID experience. So the old perception of organizations was that organization is a set of good processes and good procedures. And every so often, there is a change that gives you kind of a hit on the side, and you need to deal with that. But the goal is to go back to that normalcy of smooth sailing. Well, guess what? That is absolutely the wrong way to look at change today. Change is the new normal. Change is not it's not the exception to the rule. Change is the new rule. And your processes, and the more rigid they are, the more they make you less flexible to deal with change. So one of the biggest insights that companies need to understand is change is not the exception to the rule, change is the new rule. If this is in fact the case, then the question is, do you have the toolkit to handle change on a regular basis, on a high frequency basis? In my previous book, Next is Now, I defined the new core competence of organizations as change resilience. Change resilience is the speed and scope in which you respond to change. Oftentimes, and I got the privilege of working with some of the most amazing brands out there, from MasterCard to Mercedes-Benz to Delta Airlines to Walmart, I always found the same thing. There are a series of rigid processes, and then when change comes in, they just cannot respond fast enough, and they are not responding to the full scope. So we need to first start with a mindset shift that recognizes that technology, competitive consumer preferences, change is the new normal. And the question is, do you have the toolkit to handle that? Now let's go into COVID, Tom. So oftentimes my clients, when they called me during COVID, they were freaking out. And I said, you know what, let's start with your emotional state. What do you feel right now? And they use different words that all can be consolidated to one word, which is it's unprecedented. And I said, okay, factually, you're right, because COVID hit us all, the whole world, as victims. I mean, none of us knew what to do. Not the government, not the academia, not the pharmaceutical company. Everybody we trusted basically said, I don't know. So we were all victims globally. And I said to them, if unprecedented is what describes your emotions right now, we've got a problem. Because when you say unprecedented, you also say helpless and no tools. So we are now in a part of your brain that is completely paralyzed because you're looking at a black hole. So I said to them, let's do an exercise. When was the last time that you felt unprecedented events? And for many of them, it was 2008, 2009. If you went through it, I'm sure you did. It was dark. I remember my experience within 1 month, 90% of my orders were canceled. And the company said, go sue us, we're done. So I said, okay, let's go visit 2008, 2009. Clearly you have survived because we are here today. And let's write the chapter. Let's imagine that we are writing a case study, a chapter of that event. What happened there? What were your fears? What were the values that rose up? What values kind of disappointed you? What was the superpower that you used? What was the turning point? What was the creative idea that helped you survive? And then we wrote it. We literally sat down and we kind of slides and board and stuff like that. And what came out of it is a beautiful description of the last unprecedented event that happened to them. And from there, we converted that life experience into new tools for the next unprecedented event. So what Dare to Author is all about is saying, if change is the new normal, and I need to have a new toolkit, where am I going to get this new toolkit? This toolkit is going to come through authoring my life experiences and converting them into new insights, new resilience, new tools that I can handle the next unprecedented event.
Okay, so let's take an example. And as our listeners know, I'm happy to use my own life as an example. So I'll tell you. So I run a CPA firm and a network, or right now a franchise of CPA firms. And in 2020, what happened, of course, is everybody stopped spending money. That happened to everybody, right? And so the pivot we made was, we said, well, we're going to include, if you do it now. So we needed to kind of get them to release their pocketbook because they wanted it. They just didn't want, they were just afraid, right?
Yeah.
If you do it now, in the next month, we'll give you your tax return for free. And it completely opened it up. I mean, it was, that was such a big pivot that we actually made it standard. So we include the tax return. Okay. Now fast forward. So here we are 4 years later. Okay. And what's happened is our market has changed. So it's not COVID that changed. It's the market has changed. We used to be the biggest and almost sole player in the tax strategy market. And now we have a lot of copycats. A lot of people have read my book and they go, hey, I can do that. And they saw how successful we were. And so, now we have all this, now we've got a red ocean. We were in a blue ocean. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to walk us through is, all right. So, and I know what we've done, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about, from your perspective, you're looking at this situation where sales dropped again because of the competition, because of that change in the marketplace. People, what new people coming to market did was they said, well, look, we'll do the same thing, but for cheaper, even though we all know it's not the same thing, right? But consumer doesn't know that. So they go, okay. And so you're looking at this situation, you go, okay, so what is it that you would have us learn from COVID that would then change the narrative for the changing marketplace?
Okay. So we're going to have to work together now. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. So I want you to go back to COVID. You're finding out that people are shutting down their pockets, their budgets very, very quickly. How do you feel at that moment? Talk to me now.
Total panic. Total panic. Our sales dropped 80% in a week.
Excellent. No, it wasn't excellent, but okay. How do you feel? You're not sleeping at night. It's absolute panic, right?
Oh yeah.
And then,
yeah. How do we stay in business? How do we stay in business?
Yeah. It's survival mode. Okay.
Yep.
Survival mode. Perfect. Then you're starting to reflect, and one or two values are starting to surface to tell you, hey, let me try something different. Okay, and you're starting something very radical, because may I remind you that the annual return, it used to be a source of revenue for you, right?
Oh, so it was actually a primary revenue.
Right. So stay with me for a second. So what value or what insight caused you to be willing to bet your main source of revenue and say, I need to apply this in order to survive now? What was the value? What was the insight? What was a book that you read? What caused you?
Well, no. So the insight was, okay, what do the customers value? Because very clearly, what value does a customer get out of a tax return? Only an obligation that they have to the government. But if they had a choice, would they file a tax return? And the answer is no, they wouldn't. What would they do? What would they do?
Because let's face it, tax returns are just like insurance. We all hate doing this.
Exactly.
If it was up to us, we would never do it, right? I don't know about you. I made a conscious decision with my wife that I'm not going to pursue my life insurance benefits because the company requires me to die, and that's just not something I'm willing to do. So you're having a very interesting insight. You're going back not to the competition, you're going back to the customers, and you're saying what's important to the customer, what is their emotional mindset, and you recognize that even though it was your number one revenue stream, you are still recognizing that they hate every moment of it, and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to change the ground rules. Now, let's go take a moment and think about that decision. At that decision, you're taking a major risk, because what's at risk here? What's at risk?
Yeah. I mean, you know that you have a cost to provide that service, so you're going to be out that money. You know it.
You're going to be out that money. You're taking the risk. What convinced you to take the risk?
What convinced us was we had long believed that a better way to work with a customer was to give them what they want, which is actually a lower tax bill. So the lower tax bill was way more important to them than the filing of the tax return.
So see what you just did. What you recognize is that the impact on the customer is more important than the process itself.
Right.
Big insight from COVID. Focus on their emotions. Focus on what matters to them, not on what I charge for. Okay? And try to align your value to their value as opposed to yours. When did you realize that this is happening? What happened at the moment where you started to see them accept this? What was validated for you?
Oh, it was almost overnight. And in fact, our revenue, the number of new clients in 2020 2020 was greater than the number of new clients in 2019. So it's really obvious in the numbers, really obvious.
Perfect. So now Tom in 2024 is looking at Tom in 2020 before the decision. And this Tom is telling that Tom from 2020, here's the one thing, in order for you to be able to make this decision again, you need to let go this paradigm or this conviction. What conviction you had to let go in order to be able to make this decision?
In 2020?
Yeah. You're now giving an advice to the Tom in 2020.
The conviction was that we have to get paid for, this service that we were rendering. I mean, that was the conviction.
Thank you. Because so now these are the component of the chapter of 2020. If you'll write a case study, a Harvard business case study, and we'll go through this, we'll look at the threat, step number 1. We'll look at your emotional state, number 2. We'll look at the values and convictions, step number 3. Then we said we have to take a risk because we cannot continue the same old way, right? You're taking a risk by doing what? What the highlight of your value or decision there is that you elevated your value from what you charge for to what they receive. Yep. And you say, you know what? Maybe the money is not here. Maybe the money is in what they want and how they want it. Okay? And then you take this risk, it succeeds, and you learn that really your superpower is your ability to align your services to the value the customers see versus the services that you are delivering. What is your competition now doing in 2024? They don't know any of that. They're just seeing on the surface an offering that says, do this for cheaper, and then go. By the way, the number one competition of every entrepreneur is not a better product.
Right.
The number one competition is a good enough product.
That's right.
At least portray that. Now,
100%.
You took in 2020 a huge leap of distancing yourself from your competition by saying, I'm defining value at somewhere totally different. The question is, especially now with AI-empowered customers, where is the new value for them? Where do they assign value? Your competition are merely copying something without knowing the underlying decision, risk, and so on and so forth. They're not really being customer-centric, because here's what I'm going to tell you, and I want this every one of our listeners to remember. There are two ways of engaging with customers: inspiration and desperation. Mm-hmm. Inspiration is when you create a value and they stand in line. Desperation is when you have to lower the prices. Anytime you see your competition lowering price, understand they're in desperation mode. They've got nothing new to add. Right. Now you have a choice. Either you open the gap or you get closer to them. If you get closer to them, you just validated their price strategy, but more importantly, you validated that you don't have any new value. My challenge to you is, based on what you learned, let's revisit 2024. What is the mindset of customers? How is it shifted? And where is the new value? And you're asking different questions than your competition. Your competition is asking the question, how do I copy Tom? Okay, but what they don't know is that you are now busy in asking the question, what is value for my customers? What else do they hate that I can do better? And what can I let them feel like you don't have to pay for this because the value is in somewhere totally different. Okay, and that's really what the essence of the life experience in 2020, what helped you survive, is aligning yourself with your customers deeper, understanding them at a more emotional level, and be willing to take another risk, another leap. These are the two lessons you can take from there, which are now part of your toolkit. The difference is you're facing now the new unprecedented event, but you're facing it from a position of strength because you've been there before. You're not freaking out, and you don't need to freak out. You've been there before. You've redefined your business once before. You didn't succumb to price games, but instead elevated value along the emotional side of the customer, not the rational side. We always price based on the rational side, not based on the emotional side. And your goal is to create more inspiration. So the question is, what will inspire customers today to understand that this is very different? Because, Tom, if I'll come to you and say, I got a Rolex watch for 15% less, you'll buy it, right? But if I'll tell you that the Rolex watch is 75% off, you'll say, I don't know if that's a real Rolex, right? This is your goal. This is what you have done. You changed the ground rules. You got the guts to change the ground rules on your competition in 2020. That is your superpower. And the difference between you and them is that you've done it once. You gain more power, more confidence in doing that. And you can come to 2024 with a question of not what is the right price point, but rather what is the right value that is commanding a premium price.
No, that's exactly right. And good news is that's where we went. That's actually where we went. We decided because the client they valued what we kind of found was that the client really valued the relationship. They didn't value the project so much as the relationship. And all our competitors can do is deliver the project. They cannot deliver the relationship. And so that's actually been a big shift for us. So that's helpful. But I hope everybody's really paying attention to this, because this is such a useful tool that what Lior just did was go back to, where you were successful in adapting. And then, okay, what I'm finding is this is going to happen faster and faster because of technology.
That's right.
It's actually we're going to actually, we went 15 years without having to adapt. We did. We were in a blue ocean for 15 years. We didn't have to adapt at all. We controlled the market. And then COVID came along and boom, everybody saw, hey, Tom's out there on, in social media and he's doing all these interviews. Hey, I can do that. And so, because everybody, all of a sudden Zoom was popular. I mean, we were a paperless office 20 years ago. When we were doing it by phone, fax, and email, right? Before there was ever any Zoom or anything like it, everybody goes, okay, now what I'm seeing is that markets are changing so much faster because of the acceleration of the technology. We thought technology was fast with the internet, but when we compare the internet to AI, the internet was slow. So
yeah, absolutely.
So let's kind of shift here to technology, because I think everybody's dealing with this. Is how is technology affecting the way customers view us?
Okay. Before, if I can just bring to closure the last conversation, in Dare to Author, I have a chapter with prompt questions that will guide you through your own experiences and do what we've done here in 5 minutes in a much more rigorous way that will allow you to convert life experiences into future strength and resilience and future readiness. So let's talk about what AI have done and what technology have done to consumers. So when you and I, Tom, graduated, college or MBA, we had a role in life. We said we're going to be expert in one thing, and then other people will be the experts in other things, and life will be great. Everybody's doing their job. About 10 to 15 years ago, we have seen what I call the knowledge empowerment coming in. We used to go to a doctor, and the doctor will diagnose us, give us a prescription, and say, this is what you need to do. And we said, thank you, doctor. Right now, what happens in doctors' offices, the doctor is trying to give you the prescription, but instead, what do you tell the doctor? Oh, sir, no, I already diagnosed myself on Google. I have this medicine from Guadalajara, Mexico, and I just want to confirm that you're okay with that. And the doctor's looking at us like saying, I went to the medical school for 15 years. You want to Google for 15 seconds? And we're now equal? And the patient is saying, yeah, we are. Yeah, I have all the knowledge that I need. So knowledge empowerment started to break down authorities that we trusted, and the authority moved to the customer. But that's just step one. Then came step two, the service empowerment. So our banks and our travel agency and our airlines decided that we would like to do their job on our own time in the middle of the night. So they empowered us with doing our own mortgage online and booking our own tickets online. And I don't know if you noticed, Tom, you started to work for your local grocery stores because you now bake your own products and you are your own cashier. And the service empowerment gave us more power and collapsed other authorities like our banks and our insurance companies and so on and so forth. Not done yet. We used to read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and we said, these are the authorities. Today, there are over 200 million content creators. They are the new authorities. Everyone is a content creator. And again, another authority collapse, and more power to the customer. We're not done yet. Then came the gig economy. Remember, entrepreneurship. Everybody can be an entrepreneur everywhere. The gig economy is estimated to be $1.8 trillion by 2030. I don't need employers. I can work from wherever I want to. I can be my Uber driver. I can be Airbnb. We are all business people. The employer authority collapse. Collaboration. I don't need a church. I don't need a community center. I'm just following a video gamer on somewhere, and we are a community. This is over $300 billion business, and that was the collaboration collapse. And I'm arguing that with AI, we have reached a tipping point because we have now collapsed the creative authorities. I can be my own artist. I can be my own book author. I can do everything. So when you add the knowledge empowerment, the service empowerment, the collaboration empowerment, the entrepreneurship empowerment, the communication empowerment, and then the creative empowerment, we are facing what I call the next generation of customer engagement, the one and only. I'm the only one. I'm the brand. I don't know who you are, but I'm the brand. And I'm going to give you two examples. On April 1st, 2023, the art world was shocked when Damien Hirst, one of the leading contemporary artists in the world, have issued an invitation to his buyers. And he said, I'm putting a spin art digital tool online. You're going to create your own spin art. I'm going to produce it and sign it, and I'm going to sell it to you for $5,000. The art market thought this was a joke. Damien Hirst made $20 million in 10 days. What Damien Hirst realizes, his buyers are no longer want to be passive. They want to be the brand just like him. And he leveraged that. He doesn't need to collaborate with others. His art is being selling very well. But he understood that we are now facing a new customer that believes that they are the brand, they're super empowered, and AI is taking that to the nth degree. But if you think it's just a small experiment, I'll take you to a bigger experiment. For over 135 years, we were told that if we want happiness, all we need to do is drink this dark liquid called Coca-Cola, who owns the formula for happiness. A couple of years ago, we noticed a new machine, the Freestyle machine. You know the Freestyle machine? I'm sure you've seen them in theaters and other places. And what the Freestyle machines are introducing is a fundamental change to customer relationships. Because if Coca-Cola told us that for 138 years that they own the formula, Coca-Cola is now saying, you're going to create a formula. And what do? What do our children do, or our grandchildren? Mm-hmm. They'll fill it up with like 15% Fanta cherry, yep, and another 35% Sprite grapefruit, and on top of it, Coke Zero vanilla. And it's crap. It's disgusting, but it's my disgusting.
Right.
And tomorrow I'm going to do a new one.
Unique.
And what Coca-Cola understood is they can no longer treat customers as subservient or passive participants in the relationship who simply pay for our great products. What they realize is that they need to treat them as co-creators, as brand builders, and they need to shift from being a destination to being a toolkit. Freestyle machines are the toolkit. And I have one great important message to all your listeners who are entrepreneurs. You have an advantage over the big guys. I work with the large companies. For them to change is to take a huge ship and try to turn it around. And it takes a lot of effort because there's legacy and thousands of employees and everything else. To thrive, not just to survive, in the ever-changing environment, entrepreneurs and smaller companies are far better equipped to adapt to customer needs, to provide them what they want, to build the relationship you were talking about in a human, authentic way, not in a fake way. But we need to recognize our customers are changing. Our customers are radically changing. This is not small. This is the fourth generation of customer engagement, the one and only. They are the brand now, and we need to recognize it and then adapt ourselves to move from becoming a destination to becoming co-creators and to become toolkit for their dreams and hopes and wishes.
So outside of automation, which, like your artist example, where he gives them a basically an online tool to do this. How do you, how does a business go about that? I mean, let's take a service business. How would a service business go about that?
Sure. So I'm going to give you an example. I got to work a lot with the automotive world, okay? And especially in the luxury segment, which I've done most of the players there. My biggest insight for them was nobody needs a luxury vehicle. Because if I want to get from point A to point B,
right,
I can use a mass market product. I don't need you. And I said, what you're missing is the premium, the inspiration is in the emotional side, not in the rational side. But you keep on selling rational things. So if you're in the service business, the most important, and I've been in the service business, and I'm still to a degree in the service business, the most important thing for your customer is not your competence in doing the job, is their trust that you've got their back and that you can save them before they even know what the problem is. So the issue is not in, oh, we've got this system and we can spit out your report or whatever. They need to look you in the eyes and say, this is the person I'm willing to hedge my wagon on because he's going to take me to the right place, because that person understands me. And therefore, the power moves from exclamation marks to question marks. Ask different questions. Ask different questions.
That is awesome. Because I'm always saying, ask a better question, get a better answer.
Ask different questions, questions that are going to flank them from the side, questions that's going to make them think, and if they are answering you right away, you didn't ask a good enough question. When they have to pause, that's when you ask the right question. And we need to learn every customer need has a technical spec and an emotional spec. We are well versed with asking the technical spec, but we suck at an emotional spec. And I would say to you even more than that, we've been trained that this is business, it's not personal. And today with the one and only customer, it's all personal. So the power starts with defining the discovery process differently and asking different questions. And I'll tell you one interesting thing in professional services. Oftentimes you work on projects. You've been there a million times. You know where it's going to fail.
Yep.
By asking the questions that will make them think if they're really ready for the project, you are actually creating knowledge for them. You make them think, am I really ready? When I would come, I'll give you an example. When I would come to work with a new client, what was my first question? My first question was, who was the last consultant who was here and what happened with their recommendations?
Great.
And then I would ask, why wasn't it implemented? And they were like, why is it your business? I said, because there's a culture. And if your culture cannot accept outside advice, then let's not do it. And if your culture accepts outside advice, then let's do it. Because in professional services, I'll give you the best advice, Tom. Professional services is not a question of finance. It's a question of religion. Either you believe you know everything and therefore no external help can help you, or you believe that external help can accelerate your success because different people have different core competences and experiences. And the first thing I focus all my partners in my firm was identify the religious question first. Do we have a path for collaboration here? And every so often we will find clients that all they want is for us to write whatever they already decided, So it's the power of discovery is the first step, Tom. Then the power of crafting. I don't care that you've done it 10,000 times before. I don't want to feel that I'm part of a cookie cutter approach. Make me feel that it was personalized for me. Make me feel that when you're with me, I'm the only one that matters and that you have incorporated the emotional spec into it.
What strikes me is that it seems like we've forgotten and we need to re-engage with the root of the word customer, which is custom. And we need to make it customized for the customer. And that is really what AI allows the customer to do, is require customization.
You're right, but I would like to elevate it and build on top of it if I may. The customer is not a budget. The customer, first and foremost, is a human being with fears, aspirations, hopes, understand that humanity and connect with that humanity. Because as much as AI is going to try to fake humanity, humanity is a personal thing. You know, I had a couple of years ago, I was sitting on a panel, and there was a discussion about, you know, new channels and AI and so on and so forth, and how this is going to take over everything. And it was my turn, and I said, look, my expertise is not digital channels, even though I understand, you know, a fair amount. But my understanding is customers, so humanity. So I have a simple question for all you prestige and esteemed panelists. I was told that pornography is very, very big on the internet. Do you have any evidence that people stopped doing the real thing? And there was silence. And I'm saying, guys, we're human beings. No digital hug is going to replace a real hug. No digital caring is ever going to make me feel that I'm an important person to someone. And you know what the worst part of it is? We are drawing a biggest strength from the ability to impact other people. No AI is going to get gratification from that. In the book, I bring up a study from Harvard Medical Journal that demonstrates that people that are dedicating their gravity, the center of gravity, to helping others as opposed to fulfilling their narcissistic needs are actually happier and live longer. Why? Because we are about human connection. So I remember a conversation that I had with bankers who used to help clients, you know, fill up mortgage papers and so on and so on. They felt that the digital process kind of stripped them from their role. And I said, look, now the client is filling up all the paperwork. So you know what you can do? Two things. You just got more time with the clients, and you can actually raise your head and look them in the eyes and have a conversation with them about their hopes and dreams for the new house. This is where you add value. These tasks were mandatory tasks that you had to do because we didn't have the right tools at the time. But when the tools came in, you actually got more freedom of time to create more human connections and more human impact. And my message to everyone is, if we look at the perspective of hundreds of years, including the Industrial Revolution, we can see that people fought machines and fought new technologies every time. And you know what always happened, Tom? The machines won. Because it doesn't make sense to force labor-intensive activities when we can free people to actually move up. And where did they rise up? They rose up to the knowledge economy, and now they're going to rise up to the creative economy. They're always rising up and adding value as human beings. So connect to the human side of you, and that's what I'm saying. Author your story. Don't let others author the story for you. And if you do not proactively author your story, it will be authored for you. If you'll default to victimhood, which is a choice, then you're going to lower yourself to the lower level of performance where you can rise up to the superpower level of your performance. And that's what the book is all about.
That's awesome. So outside of buying the book, which I highly recommend, Dare to Author, Lior Arussy, what are 2 or 3 steps that an entrepreneur could take right now, even if they're not dealing with immediate change, to be able to deal with it?
I'm going to give you an idea from the book that I want everybody to honestly reflect on. I call it the gratitude denial syndrome. I'm sure you've been there, Tom, many times. We sit in a meeting and somebody's giving you compliments, you've done something right and everything else. I remember giving a performance review to an employee, and I'm giving her a lot of compliments, and we're reviewing her performance throughout the year. And I noticed that the more I give her compliments and review it positively, she's becoming more and more anxious. So I stopped the conversation and said, what's wrong? And she said, can you just go to the bottom line and tell me what's wrong with me? And I said, why do you think there's something wrong? She said, because you're saying all these things in order to kind of like sugarcoat a bigger punchline. And I said, stop. Whoa, 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 whoa. I have nothing wrong. I loved your performance this year. These were all genuine. And in the chapter, I'm talking about the fact that we have this tendency to ignore the gratitude and the compliments we get because we think they're fake, we think they're not real, we think whatever. And I'm saying by doing that, we are robbing ourselves from the energy that we need to face the next challenge. We've earned those compliments. We've earned those good words. And I'm challenging, you want to be ready for the next unprecedented event. You want to stop being a victim. Believe the gratitude, unless somebody's cheating you, but believe the gratitude, reflect on the gratitude, because they are a representation or expressions of the superpower that you do have. This is what you're good at. Don't dismiss it. Don't ignore it. Don't let it roll over. Use it as a fuel, as an energy, so you can be ready for the next change. And you can face it not with fear, but with the knowledge. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what I'm good at. Let's stop. If we can just stop the gratitude denial syndrome, that's advice number one. Advice number two. I'll do this with you, Tom, as I do it with many people. Tom, good news, bad news, what do you want first?
Oh, bad news.
Thank you. You are part of about 75% of people who respond exactly like that. This is one of the most challenging chapters in the book. And I'm arguing the following. Somebody who wants bad news first is a fixer. All they want and all their mindset is about fixing. But here's what happens. You're trying to fix the past. By being in a fixer mindset, you're not looking at opportunities that this crisis is creating. When you look at good news first as a mindset, you are a creator. You're looking to create something new. And my argument is research shows that even in the biggest crises, 14 to 20% of companies will emerge better than the worst. My message to my clients during COVID was, guys, good news is you had a strategy, you got a punch in the face, you're on the floor, but the good news is your competition is as well. So now the question is who's going to emerge faster and who's going to emerge to thriving. So my challenge to people is stop with the bad news first, because it puts you in a mindset of fixing the past, and start with the good news first mindset, which will get your mindset to start practicing what is the opportunity, not what is the hole that I need to plug.
I love it. I love it. Reminds me of one of my favorite books that I read to my grandkids. What do you do with a problem? Which is very much that. It's the problem holds an opportunity. So embrace the opportunity. So I love this. Lior, Arussy, thank you so much for being with us today on the Wealth Ability Show. If you love this like I have, please like this. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Lior, where could we get more information other than going out and buying your book, Dare to Author? Where would we get more information about what you do?
So my website, liorarussy.com, LIORARUSSY.com, has wealth of articles, wealth of videos, all free of charge. I want people to be touched. I want people to rethink. I want people to challenge their notions. So this is your best shot. That's where I place many of them. Follow me on LinkedIn, because that's where I put the latest and greatest. And I would love to hear your comments after you engage with the book.
I love it. So again, remember when we get this kind of knowledge, and it's as Lior said, it's emotional, right? Customers buy on emotion, and that emotional is so important. That's the human part of who we are. And when we actually develop these skills, and we develop these resources, then what we're always going to end up with, as we always say on the Wealth Ability Show, we're always going to end up with way more money, paying way less tax. We'll see y'all next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.